Hello and welcome to this week's video blog. One of the questions that came this week was from somebody that was just about to go out after many years to do her first public speaking gig, and also from somebody else that was going out to do her first performance, and a kind of open mic performance, not a massive performance, but a massive deal. And for both of these people, going out there was a massive deal. Now, the interesting thing is, one had skill things to deal with in order to actually go out. So that was the lady that was public speaking. She was very competent in her business. She knew what she was doing, but she was very worried about coming across as boring or uninteresting. And to be truthful, she was right. She wasn't really delivering the content that she could very well. Not only that, she was not actually making the best of what she actually had and what she knew. And so she wasn't necessarily nervous, but at the same time she was nervous of not representing herself well, because she knew for her there was a lot riding on it in her new business. And the other person is going out to do a small gig, an open mic night, to go out to sing for the first time. And there's a lot on it for this lady. A lot on it, a lot of anxiety potentially, and you know, a lot of it is fear of the unknown. For both parties, there was fear of the unknown. So what was the difference? The difference in the two people is not that one had more skill than the other. Both of these people actually had what it takes to go out and do what they want to do. They both have what it takes. Now, the difference is between one person and the other was very much a thinking state, and then the ability to do what's necessary to actually prepare for the thing, and also the steps needed to take to go out, whether you feel anxious or whether you don't feel anxious. And there's lessons to be learned from both, because one's what I call an inside-out job and the other's an outside job. So what I mean by both of those is this. Both of these people have to do something that they are not used to doing, that it requires them to take a leap, a little bit in the dark. They don't know how it's going to come across. And there is maybe a sense of, for one, lots of anxiety, and for the other, an understanding of how they want to come across, but how they are concerned that they won't. So let's just look at the heart of anxiety for a minute and what that means for us, where that comes from. Now, if I had a beautiful big chocolate cake here on this table, then what we would find is that if you'd just gone to a party and, you know, I offered you another piece of chocolate cake, you might look at me and go, oh my goodness, Angela, you know, that's the last thing I want. I couldn't just do not give me another piece of chocolate cake. Yeah, if you were looking at this piece of chocolate cake, I know, I just seem to have a food theme. If you were looking at this chocolate cake and you hadn't eaten for 3 days, or you'd been denying yourself chocolate cake for some reason, you would just look at that chocolate cake with longing eyes, okay? So in other words, it's not the chocolate cake that's actually creating the feelings and the thinking, it's our own brains. And neuroscience and psychology backs this up. There's plenty of psychology and lots of experimentation out there now that you can Google around the understanding of how the brain changes itself, how human beings create their own experience via thought. And it's not the circumstance that's actually creating the experience for us. It's not the chocolate cake. We can have the chocolate cake in front of us and have two completely different experiences of it. And that is the most incredible thing about what our mind is capable of. It is capable of creating our own personal hell, if necessary, with anxious thinking, upset tummies, fear, sabotage, lots of thinking, lots of habitual habits that do and don't serve us. Our mind has got the capacity to create our own living hell. But it also has the capacity to completely shift that, and so that we can actually expand and grow and become more of who we really, really are. And I actually drew a circle for some business people I was speaking to yesterday, and it was quite interesting. I drew a circle and I just put the words me on the inside of the circle. And then I drew another circle on the outside of it, and I put not me. And then I drew another circle after that, and I put new me. And then I drew another circle on the back of that, and I put limitless me. And I said, traditionally, lots of our tools, techniques, self-development programs, coaching things, anything that we're searching for to help us with either anxiety or becoming better at what we do, runs along the lines of trying to add something or force ourselves into something to become a not me version of ourselves in order to become a new me on the outside of that. So that's not to say that occasionally getting outside of our comfort zone is going to create thoughts and feelings for us. Of course it is. When somebody gets up on stage to sing or to do anything for the first time in many, many years, there might be lots of thinking, there might be lots of what we call somatic nervous energy, where you get the shaky palms and the knees and you want to go to the toilet loads of times. And a lot of that, if you look at that, that is the body's response to a very revved up mind. Now, does that, and adrenaline. So does that mean that we walk on stages and we get up to do anything new where we just don't expect to have a feeling at all? No, far from it. That's not the human experience, and you and I know that. But just to actually realise that we're creating that experience on our own, through our own thinking, can really help us to sort out what to do next. Often we're like a human snow globe walking around, shaking this thinking up all of the time, creating meaning and association behind it, and not realising that when the snow globe settles down, you can see the picture behind it and it all becomes a lot clearer. So what do you do if you are trying to do something that's new and you feel incredibly nervous, or you keep putting it off because you really think it is something that you want to go towards, but you just are really worried that you're going to make a fool of yourself, that you're going to get on stage and it's going to go wrong, you're going to say the wrong words, you're going to sing off pitch, etc. Well, some practical tips, first of all, is to actually, first of all, just realise that that's a lot of thought on a situation. Practically, you can look and go, what am I trying to achieve in this situation? Am I trying to get my first experience of being on the stage in forever or many, many years or even at all? In which case, why do I need to expect perfection out of myself? And if we're not going there, we might be going, I don't want people to think that I'm rubbish. I don't want people to think that I'm fooling myself in trying to do this. But just look at that. That is ourselves trying to be mind readers for people in the audience and people around us, and we're trying to second guess what people are thinking about what we're doing. And the reason why that just doesn't work, it is a really poor way to set your compass on mind reading what you think other people are thinking about or looking at, when really that's impossible. We might be able to tune into radio waves when we turn on the radio, and we can pick up energy from people. But if we're not really understanding that we don't know what that person is actually thinking, it is impossible to actually know what another person is thinking and feeling, because we're all living in our own mental reality. As we discovered, I can be thinking one thing about the chocolate cake, somebody can be thinking something else. It's not the chocolate cake. So when you are in front of people and you feel nervous and you feel that adrenaline, that sweaty palms, get reconnected as to the real reason you're doing this, number one. Are you doing this for experience? Are you doing this because this is your living and you're looking at becoming a better performer to the audience? You're looking at actually engaging with the audience more? Are you simply looking for that first experience so that you can work out what you need to be working on next and to go back out on the road and have another go? Make sure that the places that you're actually doing this in, if it's a first time, it's somewhere where you can be accepted, where there are less expectations on you, where you don't have to suddenly meet different standards that might not be appropriate for you at this stage. It doesn't mean you have to stay there, but it's about starting where you are with what you've got. Open mic nights are fantastic for getting your feet in the water and for getting going and for trialing out new things. If you become quite comfortable and confident in things like open mics or small concerts, small solo lines, etc., then you're going to find it very frustrating and a little bit unchallenging to keep going back in that same place, because the thing is, you've now overcome that not me and you've actually experienced a new me. But the truth of the matter is, there's another circle beyond that, and in fact, there's a place where there's no end to it. In other words, when you get past that circle, you end up with limitless. And the beautiful thing about limitless means there is no end to how far you could choose to actually keep going and developing yourself. The only thing that is actually stopping us is our choice of where to stop for whatever reason we're stopping. Now, does that mean that we're all going to sound like Mariah Carey, Pavarotti, Beyonce, whichever band or artist that you love the most? Is that? No, because that is that person. That's that person's gift. That's that person's reality. That's their journey. That's their story. And the way that they have chosen to actually outwork their talent. But you have a song inside of you, and you have a story inside of you. And the more it remains hidden on the inside of you, the more frustrated you will be, or you will limit yourself to that tiny version of yourself that you can currently witness. But it's not the truth, because you are so much more than that. If you've had to take on a new job at a work situation where you had to learn a new skill, even if it took you slightly longer than somebody else to learn that new skill, did you notice that actually you could still learn it? You had the capacity to have the insight to be shown or to understand, and with practice and with patience, you were able to find more potential on the inside of you that you may not have realized was there. And that's what I'm talking about, even with anxiety. There's a philosopher called Sydney Banks. And he had an understanding about how thought worked and how human beings create their experience. And he used to say that thought was the missing link to some of this. And sometimes our anxiety feelings, we've built them up over several months or several years, and we're just like a snow globe on legs, shaking that mind all the time with lots of what-if scenarios. And we're putting ourselves off, or sometimes we're even muscling through that to try and be brave and conquer this kind of mountain in front of us. But if you look at it in front of you, there is no mountain. We're making it up. We're making up what people might be thinking of us. We're making up that whether we go sharp and flat is a reflection of whether we should actually be doing it at all. We're making up why we can't go forward to do something or ask for an opportunity. We're making up why we need to stay in opportunities when really we're wanting something different. And that might challenge us to go beyond the edges into a limitless position and to discover more of who we are really on the inside. We don't have to become anything more than we already are. It's all on the inside. The treasure is there on the inside. You were born with a voice. You were born with the same mechanism as all of the people that you would love to aspire to be like. Except that it's not that they had something that you didn't. It's that they've either seen it sooner and done something with it. They've persevered where others had stopped. Or they've had a curiosity to just keep exploring and experimenting with their creativity and to actually keep moving outwards from that creativity, a bit like how a tree grows. A tree does not just grow up without growing down first. It understands that roots have to go down. There has to be more of a foundation sometimes before we can go higher. And I don't know what that foundation is for you. It could be that you go out and start some performing. It could be that you join us on the Online Singing Academy, where we can have a beautiful group of people doing exactly that, discovering where to push where their limits are, and then realizing that that's made up too, and that they can actually become even more of who they are. And there's sometimes some skill and some learning to do that. Sometimes we do that through exercises. Sometimes we do that through mindsets. But we also do that with musicality, lots of support, and just helping you take the next step forward. Not only that, it might be a bit like the lady Helen, who was the public speaker. And what she was doing was she realized that she already had confidence, and she already had skills on the inside, but she wasn't necessarily understanding how to tap into the best of those. And so she sought some help to do that. And that is the role of coaching and mentoring. Now, what's most important is to start at the level that you're at with what you've got, to find some way and some trust in moving forward, and to trust that actually you can do this and move forward. So if you find that you are suffering from anxiety, and that anxiety is, you're thinking that's telling you something, either that you shouldn't move forward or that you should just keep muscling through when you've got lots of anxiety over something, but really you're just trying to prove something and you need to let that go first. Whatever it is that's actually got you gripped in a level of anxiety. And I know what that is like, because I still have the memory of being in front of agents and auditioners and just absolutely disliking the whole process, to be quite honest, because I never understood back then that I could believe that whether I got a yes, whether I got a no, there was somewhere to move forward from, because I thought it was a damning incitement that I had no talent. And that wasn't true, because when I really started studying voice and learning how to actually understand how the voice worked and how to work the voice, it became limitless to me. It became like plasticine, and it made me realise that our confidence, our competence, our convictions, our communications, they all are available to us. So what do you do with anxiety? Nothing other than recognise that when the mind calms down, when you're skilled, when you're practiced, when you're moving in the directions that you really feel inspired to go towards, what lights you up, in other words, and what doesn't. If you're doing things that don't light you up anymore, then have a look at that. If you're having to do things that, if it really lights you up but you know it's a tough time, that's okay. You can still go through that. But what lights you up is important, because that is your inner compass. So when I say don't worry about anxiety, really I am saying that because we're adding more thought upon more thought. Don't step back. You don't need to conquer all. You simply need to take one new step forward with the next right thing that lights you up and that moves you to the limitless capacity that you really are. So remember, the thing that you see about you at the moment is me. When we get a little bit more of that, we might realise that there's an unknown bit and we're not sure whether we can go towards that or do it, but you really can. That's just what you're experiencing as the not me bit, or not the me that I'm used to, but it's still the you that you're capable of. Then you go beyond that to the new me, when you're starting to see that and you're starting to have some experience in that. The truth is, there is no limit on you. When you take all of that away, there is a limitless capacity for you to continue growing and developing your voice and performing and moving through those levels of fear, letting them go, having fun, and doing more of what lights you up. And I'm going to leave you with this quote from this philosopher, Sydney Banks. And he said, if the only thing that people understood was how not to be afraid of their experience, that alone would change the world. So think on that, and I'll see you next time.